Hi, so here we are, day 3. Okay. So today I decided we're going to talk about weddings because I just got mine over with, and yes, I feel like I got it over with. So, everybody would always ask me a bunch of questions about the wedding and about some planning stuff and all of that good details and all of the things that you go through, and I probably didn't enjoy it as much as most people. So I guess let's give you a little background on me and weddings and getting married and all of that. So ever since I was little, I did always see myself getting married one day. Getting married, having kids, the whole 9 yards, with all of the family stuff that most people assume that women will do. I always kind of loved kids. I always hung out with kids, and I always admired my parents because they have a really amazing relationship, and that was something I always wanted. However, I realized when me and my husband got engaged that while I'd always dreamt and thought of having a wedding or getting married, I never actually thought about what I wanted for a wedding. I had the basics down. I wanted to wear the white dress. I wanted to feel beautiful. I wanted to do the whole 9 yards. I wanted to have a dinner where all of my family could get together and celebrate, and we'd all eat and dance, and they would be married in a Catholic church because I'm Catholic, and it was something that I always wanted to do. But I never thought about colors. I never picked out dresses. I didn't really have any ideas for makeup or bridesmaids dresses or who to ask or how to ask or what to do when your husband only picks a couple of people and you want like 7 people. So it was confusing and overwhelming, and I didn't know where to start. Fortunately, I had an amazing maid of honor, and she went and found me a wedding checklist. And that is kind of basically what I lived by. I pulled out that checklist every 5 minutes to just make sure I was on track, because it was 3 pages of what to do 9 to 12 months before the wedding, what to do 6 to 9 months before the wedding, and just kind of broke it down into timelines and all of the little things, and it was my life-saving grace. Like, that is how I remember to do a lot of things. Every now and then I would still read through it and be like, oh, I forgot something, or oh, I didn't even think about that, or anything. Sorry, if you see, my cat likes to fetch, and she's feeling a little better today. She was a little sick, and so she's popping around different areas if you see her. So it helped me get through all of that, but at the same time I didn't really have a lot of opinions on things. And when we got engaged, my husband asked, so, you have one of those wedding books, like all women do, that whole wedding Bible that you just flip through and all I have to do is pay for it kind of thing. I was like, no, I never did that. I never even thought about it. And so he just assumed that I kind of knew what I wanted to do and all of the stuff that I wanted. So every time I asked him for his opinion, it was a lot of, oh, honey, it's whatever you want. And I'm like, cool, that's great. However, I don't know what I want. I'm asking you what you want because this is your day too. So it took us a few months to kind of get over that little bit, which was really frustrating, and move on to the next bit of, okay, now you're giving opinions. My cat just jumped in the trash can. Anyway, so starting up all of the stuff and getting through all of it, I finally planned out everything. I'd finally gotten through everything, and one of the things that made it a lot easier planning the wedding was very early on, me and my husband said we were going to do it our way, which was going to be, we don't really see the point in spending a lot of money on a wedding. We would rather buy a house. We both wanted to have kids, so we'd rather save for that, and all of the kind of little things that were more important to us than our wedding day. So we decided if anybody had an opinion or anybody wanted to buy something, that was fine. But if they were going to be negative about it, like, hey, you need to have this, or it needs to be this kind of food, or it needs to cost this much money, unless they were paying for it, we were just going to ignore it. Because at the end of the day, we decided it was something for us. If it was really that important to them, they'd offer to pay for it. So that took a lot of the stress off of me planning it, and figuring all of that out, and helped kind of calm me down, because everybody has an opinion on how your wedding should go. Some of it was really helpful. Some of it was, hey, have you ever thought about this? Or this is a really cheaper alternative, or this is what we did for our wedding. Other people were just, you know what would be nice? You know what would be great? And just all of these opinions of it should be fancy, or should be this level, or needs to be this, and needs to be that. And it was a little less helpful. And it helped that we'd already set up that idea that it was only what we wanted, because it helped make me feel better about the whole process. It helped me calm down and actually do the planning. What was another interesting to figure out was, when we started looking, we were debating between San Antonio and the Rio Grande Valley, which is where I'm from, and kind of pricing all of the things out, and San Antonio was very expensive. We got offered the church in the hall for a really great deal and where I'm from, and we took it. So we decided to plan it down there, which is a new level of, I didn't think that was going to be that big of a difference planning a wedding somewhere I'm not, because there was a lot of, well, you can come into our offices whenever you want, or it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 kind of thing, or come in and try the food, come in and try the cake, come and look at the decorations and the flowers and everything. And I was like, I can't. I live 3.5 hours north and I have a job, and I can't just pop into your office during business hours because I'm working to pay for this. So it was figuring all of that out. Fortunately, my mom is a lifesaver. She jumped in and she helped, because she still lives down there. So she jumped in. She knew most of the vendors already. So she jumped in, helped, meeting with people, talking with people, and they both helped us pay for a lot of it, which helped a lot in the long run, especially since I ended up being unemployed towards the end of it. So it kind of helped having all of that together and having our little support structure. The next fun bit was figuring out all of the bridesmaids and maid of honor thing. So I have 2 sisters, and I love them both to death. We are actually really great friends. We have our own group chat. We make jokes and everything. Don't get me wrong, we drove each other crazy when we were younger, but now that we've gotten older, we've kind of developed a really great relationship. I wasn't sure how to go about it, because, no offense to them, but they don't know really how to plan parties very well, and they're not super social. So I was like, oh, okay, I'd really like my maid of honor to be somebody who can help me plan the bachelorette party. If my mom can't plan the bridal party, if I start to lose my mind, like, they need to be there and help me plan stuff. So I talked to both of them. I sent them both down, and I said, I love you both to death, but I can't pick either of you for my maid of honor, because I need someone to help me party plan, and just kind of, I know both of you don't like to party plan. And it was really funny because both of them said, thank goodness, because we were going to be driving ourselves crazy trying to help you plan this. So they both ended up being really sweet about it, and I ended up picking one of my really good friends who, like I mentioned earlier, was a big lifesaver. She helped me find that checklist, helped me find all of these little details, and helped me really pull it together. So what I learned from that was just pick the person who's going to help you the most, not the person who expects it, not the person that everyone else tells you who it should be. Pick the person who's going to help you, because it makes a lot of difference. Another thing I learned was if there's a will, there's a way. So in the end, I had 7 bridesmaids, and my husband had 3, including the best man. So that was fun to figure out. What ended up happening is one of my bridesmaids was one of my best friends who's a guy, and another one of my good friends wanted to wear a suit. So I had both the guy and her wear mint suits, which ended up looking really nice and ended up coming out to the same price as the dresses anyway. So they both ended up wearing suits and walking in, one of the bridesmaids, and even though a couple of his groomsmen were like dropping in and out, we ended up with a good number and lined him up, sent him down, and everything turned out great. So all of that worrying ended up being for nothing, and it ended up turning out really well. But a lot of it that I learned looking back was it was a lot of stress for nothing. Even the day of the wedding, there was a lot of things that I didn't think about. Like, I didn't really put a schedule together for when the father-daughter dance was going to happen, or when our first dance was going to happen, what order we were going to go in, who was going to give the toasts. And it ended up being kind of funny because the best man gave his toast, and then I had my maid of honor do the toast right afterwards, so everybody kind of drank some champagne and then paused for a minute, and she gave her toast, and then everybody drank more champagne. And so a lot of people kind of chugged it the first time, and so other people were like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad I didn't chug this. So that ended up being really funny, but ended up being really memorable. And another thing was that a lot of the little things that went wrong or were just weird that happened that day ended up being just some of the funny things that we laughed about later, which I was kind of pretty relaxed about for the most part by that day. I think it was really funny because a lot of people thought I was going to back out or I was not going to show up because I wasn't really talking to anybody that day. Leading up to the actual ceremony, everybody that saw me were like, is she okay? She looks really stressed out. And I'm like, I'm kind of am. I've been up since 5 in the morning and I haven't eaten a lot of food, so I'm a little cranky. I just decided that day, I was like, I don't really want to talk to anybody right now. All the way leading up to, once we get to the reception, everything is done. And so anybody who has anything to say to me, well, they can say it by that point, or they can just say congratulations. I didn't really want to deal with any problems that day. So I just kind of had everybody filter it through my mom, my sisters, and my maid of honor, who I was just like, look, if there's a problem, tell them. If they think it's that important to ask me, they'll ask me. And they really only ended up bringing me like 1 or 2 things, and it ended up a lot better that way. But I think the biggest hurdle was getting over that and moving on to the next phase. Which I mentioned in the first video that I ended up having an anxiety attack the Wednesday before our wedding. And it was interesting, to say the least, because it really freaked my husband out, because he came home, I was a mess, I was in tears, I was freaking out, I was panicking, and I was just like, I just need to cancel this wedding. And he just looks at me and goes, are you leaving me? What is happening? Are you okay? What did I do wrong? I don't know what's happening. I don't know how to fix this. And I said, okay, calm down. I'm not leaving you. You're fine. I just don't want to go have a wedding right now. And once we got through that part, he was like, okay, well, we can just go to the judge's office or something, make an appointment, and get married. Like, we already had our marriage license. We could have just gotten married anywhere. And I was like, cool, that's fine. That makes me feel better. And looking back, I think the biggest stressor was the idea of the permanence, because I always thought I was only going to get married once. And that's just kind of how it worked, because my parents have been together for years now. They're the only people they've ever dated, and they're just as happy now as they were when I remember them getting together, and everybody else remembers them starting to date. But I also grew up with a lot of my family going through divorces. His family has a lot of divorces. I have friends who've gotten married before me who aren't together anymore. And it kind of stressed me out. It freaked me out to the point that I had an anxiety attack the Wednesday before the wedding, that I was freaking out. It felt a lot easier to say, you know, we'll just stay kind of dating, we'll stay together, but we'll not get married, because if we break up, it's a lot more commonplace and okay, versus if we get a divorce later on, kind of thing. And it was easier to deal with. On top of that, the person that I kept going to for advice and help was my mom, but my mom hasn't dated anybody else. So there was a little bit of a kind of lack of experience there. Not to say anything bad about her, just I didn't know who else to ask, and I was freaking out because I dated other guys before, and the last relationship before I met my husband really ended poorly, and he said a lot of negative things about me afterwards. Love breakups. So I was like, well, what happens if, I don't know, he wakes up tomorrow and he thinks I'm unbearable and leaves? Or what happens if, I don't know, the world ends, kind of thing? Like, I don't know. And it was funny because a lot of my friends, I remember one of the friends that I had that got married maybe 3 or 4 years ago. They'd been together, they'd already had their first kid together, and they never got married, and they just finally decided, sure, why not, and got married, and they're still perfectly happy together. And I think I suddenly understand what they were thinking, because it was just so stress-inducing and freaking out, and at the end of the day, I was like, once it's been almost a month since our wedding day, and we're still happy. There's really nothing wrong. We've kind of gone back to our routine of just what we do every day, and nothing's really changed other than the official on paper and the fact that I had to sit in 3 government buildings for like 5 hours to change my name. And part of me wishes that somebody had told me that. Nothing's going to change. Everything is going to be the same, and that's the ideal. That it just kind of puts it official on paper, and it's a day that you can celebrate that you finally found this person who you love and who loves you back and just seems to work really well with you. And all of the stress and all of the worry from the wedding day ended up being for nothing. It was just, it happened. There was good times. We enjoyed it. We ended up being late to our reception because the next day we were waking up at 5 a.m. to go to Galveston to get on our cruise for our honeymoon. And so we ended up going to the 5 o'clock mass. So our wedding ceremony was at 3 o'clock. We went to the 5 o'clock mass, and then it ended up running an hour and a half instead of an hour. So the reception started at 6 and we got there late at 6:30. But it still ended up being fine. We walked in and everybody entertained themselves and had fun. And I heard later that one of the security guards was a younger guy who was unhappy being single and was asking everybody who was single at the wedding, which was a little uncomfortable for some people. Understandably so. So that was a fun story we can laugh about now. And I don't know, everything that kind of went wrong went right, and so it just made the day more memorable. And in the end of the day, everything just kind of solidified what we already knew, is that we loved each other and everything was going to be fine. We still have our cats, we still live together, we're still happy, and everything ended up working itself out. I guess the only few things that I ever wanted to change, like looking back, was we didn't pay for the photographer to stay there the whole time. We paid for the first couple of hours, mostly because I forgot that I wanted pictures of the dances afterwards. Like I said, I didn't really think out the planning, coordination of the whole thing. I was like, just take pictures of whoever's there and that'll be good. And then afterwards, during the day of, I was like, who's going to take pictures when we're dancing? But it worked out. Everybody has a cell phone these days, so everybody took pictures and sent them to us afterwards. And so we have some really great pictures that I shared. But all of the stress of the day of ended up being just nerves, just the little things that don't end up mattering in the end. A lot of the time, like, I think back to it, I'm like, I don't really remember a lot. It went by, it came, it went. We danced, we ate, we laughed. One of my best friends shotgunned a beer with my now husband because he thought it would be great, and afterwards was like, you're part of the family now. And some of my cousins couldn't make it, but they ended up wishing us well, and we have to meet up again later so they can meet him if they haven't met him yet. And it ended up being a really great day all in all, and everybody told me afterwards, oh, it was great, it was really elegant, but it was really casual, so we all kind of had fun and hung around. We ended up skipping out early at like 11 because, like I said, we had to wake up at 5 in the morning the next day. And my parents ended up staying there till like 1 or 2 in the morning, just drinking and talking with friends, because we paid for a lot of alcohol for an open bar and not everybody drank a lot, so there was a lot left over. So they were just there hanging out, and everybody had a good time, so it ended up being a really great thing. And we got to see some family that we don't always get to see, and friends that showed up that I actually got to see one of my old roommates from Florida, which I hadn't seen her in years. So that was really fun and nice. And I don't know. In the end, it ended up being what we wanted and what we needed. So, and at the end of the day, we're married. So all of the stress, I guess, wound up being a good thing. And we figured it out and got through it. And it was our first challenge as a married couple. I say first because we've gone through a lot. We're still going through a lot, figuring stuff out and all of the little quirks. Everybody jokes about socks on the floor, and I thought I'd solved it because my husband likes to undress by the bed. He wears an undershirt and a top shirt, and so he'll like to take off the top shirt when he lays down in bed and throws it on the floor. So I was like, I'll just put a hamper right by the bed. Didn't fix it. We just learned to live with these things. But I guess my biggest lesson that I learned that day was your big moments are going to be exactly what they need to be. And at the end of the day, what matters is how you go through it. Same can be said for birthdays. Same can be said for wedding days. Same can be said for anniversaries. At the end of the day, they're your moments, and they don't have to be the same as anybody else's moments, because you're not the same as everybody else. So as long as you're happy and you're getting what you wanted, even if it's getting married in a park, or getting married in a church, or getting married in your backyard, if you're happy with that, do it. If you're happy with how your life is going, great. If you're not, figure out what you can do to make it better, whether that's taking more time off, changing your work hours, prioritizing other things, talking to your coworkers or your superiors about making a more healthy work environment. You only have the one life. Figure out what you can do to make it better for you. Sometimes it's as simple as, hey, can we get a microwave in here? Or, I don't really appreciate when you gossip with me in the workplace. Or, your opinions are great, but I don't really need them right now. And sometimes people don't even know they're doing it. Sometimes they do, and they're just going to be those kinds of people, but you never know until you try. And that's our topic for today. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully you got some good nuggets out of it. At the very least, you got to hear me vent about all the weird stuff and stresses that come up with weddings. And if you're planning your own wedding, or you went through your wedding and you were as stressed and panicked as I was, you're not alone. It happens to the best of us.